When a divorce gets filed, the story usually writes itself in the most predictable way available. Two famous people split. Each side releases a careful statement asking for privacy. The tabloids fill the space with speculation. And within a few weeks, the news cycle moves on. What has been happening with the Jelly Roll and Bunnie XO divorce since May 2026 has followed almost none of that pattern. The filing was straightforward. Jelly Roll filed the paperwork on May 18th in Williamson County, Tennessee, listing a separation date of May 9th and citing irreconcilable differences. What came after was not straightforward at all. It involved a dumb blonde podcast episode that Bunnie recorded, published, and then removed from her feed. It involved Jelly Roll himself addressing the divorce from a concert stage in terms that were simultaneously emotionally raw and deliberately partial. It involved his daughter Bailey and posting on TikTok in June to express her disgust at the level of public interest in what she called a private family matter. And it involved Bailey and returning to TikTok on the night of July 19th for a live stream that generated more discussion than anything else in the entire story, during which she delivered a statement that the internet has not stopped replaying since. When she finally opens her mouth about what actually ended her parents' marriage, she said, "The internet in totality is about to crumble." She also said, flatly and without qualification, that nobody cheated. The combination of those two statements, one closing a door and one opening a window onto something she refused to step through, has produced a situation in which the divorce itself has been finalized and the story is somehow still only getting louder. To understand why the ending of this marriage landed the way it did, it is necessary to understand what the beginning of it represented to the people who had been following Jelly Roll's career. Jason Bradley DeFord, born December 4, 1984 in Antioch, Tennessee, had built a public identity entirely around the fact that he had been in and out of jail across his 20s, had been absent for the birth of his daughter Bailey in 2008 because he was incarcerated at the time, and had rebuilt himself slowly and with genuine difficulty into someone capable of sustaining serious relationships and serious professional work. His music was the documentation of that rebuilding process. Bunnie XO helped him get on his feet financially and fight for custody of his daughter, Bailey, from a previous relationship. And according to her husband, she dove fully into helping to take care of his daughter when he achieved that goal in 2017. They met in 2015, according to multiple documented accounts of their relationship timeline. Married in August 2016 during a whirlwind Las Vegas ceremony. The marriage they built became part of the public version of Jelly Roll's redemption story. He spoke about it openly, frequently, and with a specificity that made it feel like genuine testimony rather than promotional material. Bunnie, whose given name is Elisa DeFord, ran the Dumb Blonde podcast and had her own substantial public presence that was built on a similar quality of directness, a willingness to say the things that other people in comparable positions typically chose to manage into something more palatable. The two of them together constituted a brand built on radical honesty about difficult things, which meant that when the divorce paperwork became public, the audience that had followed them both for years felt the contradiction acutely. These were not people who hid from hard truths. These were people who had built careers out of confronting hard truths publicly. The silence that followed the filing felt, to that audience, like evidence of something considerably more complicated than irreconcilable differences. There was also a specific piece of biographical context that became newly relevant once the divorce was public. In October 2025, Jelly Roll had appeared on the Human School podcast and disclosed something he described as one of the worst moments of his adulthood. He said he didn't talk about it publicly at all, but had had an affair on his wife, that it was the first time he genuinely felt he couldn't get anything right, and that he knew he was in love with her. He said it had really blown him back, and that he had done a lot of work to repair that relationship. He also said they had become stronger than they could ever have been as a result of the repair. The disclosure was made months before the divorce filing, and Jelly Roll framed it explicitly as a past crisis that had been resolved. Once the divorce became public, however, that disclosure became the obvious starting point for anyone constructing a theory about what had gone wrong, even though Jelly Roll's own framing had been that the affair was a previous chapter that had been worked through rather than an ongoing issue. Bailey Ann's first public response came in June, when she posted to her TikTok stories after the filing became widely known. Bailey Ann addressed the divorce on her TikTok story June 16th, writing that she was disgusted at how invested everyone seemed to be in a very clearly private family matter. The post was not a denial of anything specific. It was not a defense of either parent's version of events. It was an expression of frustration directed at the audience that had turned her family's personal circumstances into entertainment content. The message was blunt and intended to close the conversation. Then she added, almost as an aside, that she was not speaking on it yet. That single word produced the opposite of the effect it was designed to create. Bunnie XO provided the most detailed public account of the marriages and, during an episode of her Dumb Blonde podcast recorded after the filing became public. She spoke about the couple's marriage and impending divorce on the episode, where she revealed that their split wasn't sparked by any single incident. She said they had stopped communicating together in the past year and a half, and said it was safe for her to say that she always loved her husband a little bit more than he loved her. She also described herself as the glue that held the marriage together, and said that he was the runner and she was the chaser, characterizing their fundamental dynamic as one in which she was always more invested in maintaining the relationship than he was. She said the divorce decision was not mutual, and described a Mother's Day fight that had been a breaking point. She also said she had wanted to try couples therapy, and that he had not been willing to pursue it. That episode was subsequently removed from her podcast feed, according to multiple documented reports of the deletion. The timing and the lack of explanation for why it came down transformed what might have been a definitive account into a new source of speculation. The divorce was finalized earlier in July, and according to court documents obtained by People, the former couple divided their assets, including their homes, cars, and aircraft, and their intellectual properties. The finalized settlement included, according to reporting on the divorce terms, a no disparagement clause, a legal agreement preventing both parties from making negative public statements about each other, according to the Eastern Herald's reporting on the settlement. A no disparagement clause is a standard feature of many high-profile divorce settlements, precisely because it creates a legal framework for managing how the end of a relationship gets discussed publicly. What it cannot legally reach is a third party who is not a signatory to the settlement, which is where Bailey Ann's July 19th livestream becomes relevant. Roll and Bunnie XO agreed to a no disparagement clause when their divorce was finalized, a legal mechanism intended to keep the actual reason for their split out of public circulation. On Sunday night, the clause ran into an obstacle it could not legally reach: an 18-year-old on TikTok. The live stream was not a prepared statement. It was raw and unfiltered in the specific way that live streams from people who are genuinely angry tend to be, without the editorial management that a recorded video or a written post allows. Bailey Ann defended her father from rumors that she characterized as wrong and harmful. She was specific about the cheating theory. She said nobody cheated. She said her father did not cheat and Bunnie did not cheat. She said the audience had no idea what happened and that they needed to wait until they found out. And then she delivered the line that has been replayed across every platform since, that the view people had of not only the situation but their relationship and the internet in totality was about to crumble the day she opened her mouth. She did not open her mouth further. She checked in with her chat, pivoted to another topic, and ended the live stream without providing the disclosure she had so vividly promised. The architecture of what she had done, closing one door completely and pointing at another without opening it, maximized the public conversation about the divorce at precisely the moment when the legal settlement had been designed to minimize it. Bunnie XO responded to Bailey's comments, posting a TikTok of herself lip-syncing to a song on July 22nd, with a fan commenting that Bailey was posting strange things and hoping Bunnie would clear it up. The response was indirect and did not provide the clarification the fan was requesting. Both Roll and Bunnie have said in their respective public statements that they intend to remain best friends and that the co-parenting relationship around Bailey and their son Noah would continue. Roll said from a concert stage, according to documented reporting on the show, that nobody cheated on nobody, pointed the crowd toward Bunnie's podcast episode, and said she would be his best friend forever. There is also the context of what the couple had been building together privately in the period leading up to the filing. In June 2024, Bunnie XO and Jelly Roll got candid about trying IVF in the hopes of having a child, with Bunnie saying they genuinely never thought they'd want to add to their family, but something changed, and they both just wanted a piece of each other together to add to their already perfect family with Bailey and Noah. They subsequently explored surrogacy as an option, with Bunnie explaining on her podcast that she could not carry a child herself due to medical risk. The discovery that the couple had been actively pursuing family expansion through fertility treatment and surrogacy arrangements, right up until the period that preceded their separation, reframes what might otherwise appear as a marriage in gradual decline. Two people who are planning a family together are not people who have already decided to end that family. Whatever happened between the surrogate conversations and the May 9th separation date is the part of the timeline that no one involved has publicly addressed in full. The audience's response to Bailey Ann's livestream has divided largely along two interpretive lines. One reading is that an 18-year-old who has watched strangers turn her family's private pain into public content for weeks finally reached the limit of her patience and expressed that frustration in the raw, unfiltered way that people who are genuinely angry sometimes do, and that the internet will crumble. Framing says more about her protectiveness toward her father than about any specific secret she is actually holding. The other reading is that someone who genuinely knew something significant was communicating, with precision, that the public understanding of the situation was substantively wrong and that there was a factual reason for the divorce that had not been disclosed. The two readings are not mutually exclusive. Both can be simultaneously true about the same statement. What is fully confirmed in the documented record of this story is the following. Jelly Roll filed for divorce in Tennessee on May 18, 2026, listing a separation date of May 9th and citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized in July,